Today, our topic will focus on transport. Okay. Transport is very important activity in a supply chain. Okay. In this chapter, we will learn the concepts about transport. Again, let's review this slide one more time. This slide gives us the definition about logistics. Okay. Logistics involves several activities, okay, including sourcing, purchasing inputs, and then managing these inputs as inventory, and then also maintaining warehouses operations, and also arranging the transportation and delivery, which is the topic for today. Again, we know there are three key flows along the supply chain. Okay. Material flow, information flow, and resources flow. Okay. And this chapter, this unit is related to the materials flow. Okay. So the transport is related to the physical movement of products or of materials. Okay. So now we know we're going to talk about this logistic activity today. And in this unit, first, we will tell you the different types of transport modes that can be used in a supply chain. Okay. And we try to compare their cost structures and their characteristics. And also, we will briefly mention the relationships between freight rates and consignment weight, consignment volume, and also the distance for the flight to be traveled. And also explain some terms used in the transportation area. And also we will have a section talking about how to plan transport infrastructure for a nation. And this chapter, I think, is very critical for those policy makers. Of course, as a people in other areas, like in business areas, we also can make some suggestions regarding the infrastructure, transport infrastructure, so that lawmakers or those policy makers can have some idea about how to plan transport infrastructure for the nation. And also, this chapter, we will mention a concept or new organization in a supply chain. And actually, that's we call this distribution centers. Actually, in previous chapter, we talked about warehouse operations, and we all know the functions or activities in a typical warehouse. Okay, but here we try to explain this new facility or new organization in the supply chain. It's also has the similar functions to the warehouse. Okay, actually, maybe we can call this distribution center a special type of warehouse. Okay, however, they are different. Okay, although they are quite similar. I think the distribution centers provide more functions than the traditional warehouses. Okay, and also in the end of this chapter, I will try to introduce a transportation mathematical model, which is a model that can solve transportation problems. For example, we try to arrange the transportation volumes from some original, say, factories to destinations like distribution centers or some other warehouses. Okay. So from the origins to the destinations, okay, each origin can supply every destination, can supply the needs for every distribution centers or every destination. And also each destination can be supplied by all of the origins, all of the factories. Okay. but the quantity that each origin should ship to each destination should be, we should consider the transportation cost factors. Right? We like to see the overall transportation cost to be minimized. Okay, and then in this way, then we can have a very optimum solution for this transportation planning. This is a topic covered in typical operations research class, but here I'll just try to give you a brief introduction and give you a rough idea, see how this model works and how we can formulate a transportation problem, formulate a model. And once we have the model, then of course we can use some tools, some software to solve the model. This is the last part of this chapter. So we have these 4 sections, from the characteristics of the transport modes to the transport infrastructure planning and the idea about distribution centers. And also we will tell you a factory gate pricing, this concept, how this concept can be applied together with the distribution center organizations. And of course, last part is the transportation model. Typically, we have 5 transport modes that we can use. And I think in the first unit or second unit, we have already mentioned that to you. I think previous time we have mentioned this. I told you that there are 5 modes of transport that we can use. The air, the road, water, okay, including sea and river, okay, rail, and the last one is the pipeline. It's a very very special one, special kind of transport mode, and of course it is limited to some particular products. Okay, let me go back to this slide. Usually we can select those modes that I just mentioned. We can select one of them, or we can select several of them together for our flight. But usually nowadays we try to get the service from logistics service providers, right? As we mentioned in the maybe Unit 2 or Unit 3. Okay, so they arrange the delivery. They arrange the delivery for us, delivery of the flight for us, right? And actually, we don't know what kind of transport modes that our flight is on. Typically, they use more than one mode. Okay, more than one mode. Okay. And if we need to determine which mode to use, we don't ask the logistics service provider for help. Then we need to know how to make this decision. Okay. So you try to choose a fast mode or a slow mode, an expensive mode or a less expensive or inexpensive mode. The decisions, okay, up to you, and you have to consider different factors. Right? But we need to know the cost of these transport modes are related to the flight, some characteristics of flight. For example, the volume, the weight, or the value of the flight. Okay, and you have a larger volume or heavier weight or higher value. Of course, maybe you need to pay more for the transportation fees. Okay, and also the distance to be traveled. Okay, for example, you want to ship your flight to another city in Taiwan, or you try to ship this flight to another nation. Okay, the distance will be totally different, right? So of course, longer distance you have to pay more. Okay? And also, sometimes some modes or some companies can provide some services that we feel are very important, but some don't. Okay? But if you really need these kind of services together with the transportation, then you have to choose those companies that can provide these value-added services. Okay. So the availability of different services also a factor that we need to consider. And also the unit cost, the freight rates, the unit cost of transportation, unit transportation cost also need to be considered. Altogether, then you can choose a proper mode for your flight. Okay. Of course, you can add other factors. Say maybe whether or not this is emergent aid order. If this is emergent order, of course you need to choose a really fast mode transportation services. So when we consider the cost, okay, the transportation cost, we should have the idea that the relationship between the freight rate charged and the weight, okay, and the weight of the freight, the relationship is not necessarily linear. That means the freight rate that you pay is not proportional to the weight of the freight, not necessarily that kind of relationship. And also, the freight rate charged is not linearly related to the distance to be traveled. Okay, we can see the figures on the next two pages. And this page, okay, showed the relationship between freight rates charged and the distance of the freight to be traveled. We can see from this figure, this is not a linear relationship, right? This is a nonlinear, a curved linear. It's not a linear relationship. That means when a flight needs to be transport longer distance, the freight rate is not increased proportionally to the distance. But we can see from this figure, no matter how short we ship our products or our freight, okay, we need to pay a fixed amount of fee, right? This is so-called fixed cost. Okay? Even though you ship like the distance like maybe 10 miles, right? Still they need to hire drivers. They need to use a truck or any kind of vessels, right? So even you ship your freight, right, very close to your site, you still need to pay the minimum amount of the fee, right? But as the distance increased, actually we don't need to pay the amount, the fee proportionally with the distance, right? So we can see every additional, say, one additional unit distance traveled, we need to pay additional fee, right? But this additional fee will be diminishing, right? Will be diminishing. That means, for example, for the distance here, and you add one additional distance, you have to pay the more additional fee. The additional fee will be less than, say, if you have the distance here, you add one additional unit distance, then the increasing amount of fee will be less than when you have less distance, but you add additional 1 unit. Okay, so you can see this is the concept of the so-called slope. Okay? When you have longer distance, then the additional fee you have to add will be decreasing. Okay, and up to a limit, up to a very long distance, right? And then from that distance on, okay, no matter how long you have, you don't need to add additional fee for the additional distance, right? So this is we call this is the ceilings of the flight rate. Okay, so that's the relationship between the flight rate and the traveling distance. Okay. And also, this figure shows the relationship between flight rate and the consignment weight, the rate and the weight, okay, consignment weight. As you can see from this figure, okay, when we have heavier consignment, then the unit flight rate will be decreasing. The reason is because we can spread over this fixed cost over the larger weights. So that's the relationships that shows. Okay. And another situation is sometimes maybe we need to ship bulky cargoes, bulky items. Right? Perhaps they are very light in terms of the weight. They are not heavy. However, in terms of volume, they occupy quite big spaces, right? So when this is the case, okay, the companies, those service providers will apply a so-called volumetric charging basis. That means the companies will charge you according to the volume of your cargo or your flight. Okay, and I think this is very reasonable because when the service providers accept your business, they have to sacrifice their transportation capacity, right, in order to ship your cargo. If they use the basis like according to the weight, then they cannot charge you too much, right? Then they don't feel that's a good deal, right? But if they use this volumetric charging, right, then according to your different dimension, the entire volume, right, then they can charge higher. In this way, they can compensate for the lost capacity, right? If they don't do your business, they can provide services for other consignors, right? If the cargoes of other consignors are not this kind of this so-called bulky characteristics, then they can use other charging bases. And these 5 major transport modes, right, from air, road, water, rail, and pipeline, they are different in cost structures. And we can divide cost structure into 2 parts. One category is fixed cost, and the other is, of course, a variable cost. Right? For the fixed cost means for each transportation, no matter how short or how long, how far away you have to move, then you have to pay the fixed amount of cost. Right? For example, you have to hire the driver, right? You have to have the vessels, you have to have these transportation assets, right? But for the variable costs, right, the other category, that could be like fuel, the gas, or some other charges maybe by the transportation administration organization or transportation administration agencies. Right? So air, the first one, air, in terms of the fixed cost compared to other modes, air has lower fixed cost. However, it has higher. It has a very high variable cost, and this could be the fuel and maintenance and some additional security requirements. Okay, and the advantage, the best thing for this mode is it is really fast. The speed is its advantage. Okay, but of course we know airplane cannot carry too much freight, right? So in terms of the transportation capacity, it is of course quite limited. Another disadvantage is for this mode, still we need to have other transport modes to supplement this mode, because typically the airplane usually just landing in the airport, right, and then fly to another airport. Okay? The airplanes don't land in like in our factories, our companies. No, right? That's not possible. Right? So we need to have, for example, the road transport modes. We have to use truck to carry goods to the airport, right? Or we have to use the trucks to carry goods from the airport and then back to our factory sites, right? So this transport mode does not provide direct links between consigners and consignees, right? Typically, we have to use like road transport mode together with this. And the second one, road transport mode. Okay, that's a very popular mode. Nowadays in Taiwan, we have very convenient road systems. Okay, from north to south. Okay, we have many express highway systems. Okay, compared to maybe sometime like 20 or 30 years ago. Okay, so road transportation actually is very popular in every nation. Okay, like in U.S. also. They have very complete highway systems of several decades. So these transport modes, again, the fixed cost is not so high. Right? It's lower compared to other modes. Of course, this may be higher than the previous one, the air transport modes, right? Roughly. But the variable cost is not very low. It's a little bit higher. It's in the median compared to other modes, okay? Because of the rising fuel costs, right? And also we have to periodically to check our vehicles, our trucks, cars, etc. Right? So the maintenance cost also need to be spent. And also, maybe in many nations, they start charge those people using cars, trucks, etc. For example, the congestion charge or some kind of environmental pollution charge, etc. Well, this additional cost will be variable, because if you don't use the transportation tools so often, then you don't need to pay these additional charges, right? So that's the variable cost. Okay. Again, because of the convenience highway system, okay, and the transport mode in terms of the speed, it's also very good. Okay. For example, in Taiwan, okay, if you have cargoes arrive, your flight arrive in maybe Kaohsiung, the Kaohsiung city, there's a port, Kaohsiung, the port there, and then you can use like a truck, okay, to carry your flight all the way back to Taipei, maybe within 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours. Okay, if you are not carry your flight during those holidays, right? During the holidays, you have to maybe spend double time from south to north. Maybe you need to spend like 8 hours. Or maybe sometimes 10 hours. So normally the transport mode, okay, they're good on speed. They are good on availability, because we have many convenient highway systems, okay, dependable, okay. But also the disadvantage is a truck cannot carry too much cargo, right? So the capacity is also limited. The capacity is also limited, right? So you cannot carry too much, right? No matter in terms of the volume or weight. Okay. However, it does have a unique advantage. I mean, among all these different modes, right? Only this transport mode can provide direct links between consignor and consignees. You can send a truck to the supplier's factory, and then carry the freight all the way back to your factory, your warehouses, your retailer stores. So this is the good thing, that you can use only this transport mode that you can finish your transportation task. And the third one is the water including sea transportation and the river transportation. Right? Of course, we know for the international trade, we use a lot of sea transportation, right? And this transport mode, okay, the fixed cost is in the median compared to other modes, right? in the median, okay. And of course, for this transport mode, we have to buy vessels. We have to invest in handling equipment in the airport, in the terminal. We also need to maybe rent some space or some sites in the harbor, right? And have our own handling equipment there. Okay, all these are fixed costs. Right? And the variable cost is low compared to the previous two modes, right? Because of the economies of scale. Okay, a ship or a container can carry a quite large amount of cargo or freight, right? Compared to like an airplane or a truck. Okay, so because of the vessel, the ship can carry large volume of freight, so we can have this large volume freight to share the cost, to share the cost that we need to pay. So we can have more units to share, then we can have lower unit variable cost. And of course, the capacity compared to the previous two modes, this transport mode has quite large volumes of capacity. Again, just like the air transport mode, okay, this transport mode does not provide direct links between consignor, consignees. Also, you need to use trucks, right, to supplement this transportation task. Okay, and it's of course we all know this is a very slow mode, right? Because the vessel cannot have very high speed. It is not like the truck, right, or the rail. Okay, not like the airplane. Airplane we can have very high speed, but for the water transport, it is limited because nowadays we still cannot overcome those resistance from the water, so that if we can have this very high, very powerful propelling machines, maybe in the future we can have very higher speed compared to today's speed. So this is the water transport mode. And the next one is rail. Typically, we might have the experience to take a train, okay, to travel from our hometown to other cities, right? But the railway, they also have freight transport services, not just passenger transport services. And the rail transport mode, the fixed cost is rather high because of those expensive investments on the tracks, the locomotives, the wagons, and the terminals, the handling equipments, etc. Okay, so fixed cost is very high. However, the variable cost is low. Right? This is just situation opposite to the maybe air transport mode. And rail is very reliable, very dependable. And in terms of speed, it's also good. Okay. Although it's not really fast, but because trains are traveling on the special tracks, they don't need to stop unless they reach certain terminals, right? So the other way is just moving from the one place to the other place, right? So that's the rail. Okay. Rail also can carry larger quantities of freight compared to airplane and compared to the road transport mode. Okay. And the last type is pipeline. Okay, this is a very special kind of transport mode. Okay, so this transport mode, the fixed cost is very, very high compared to the previous 4, because we have to first get so-called rights of way. Okay, because you have to install those pipelines, right, on some along some regions. Then you have to pass through some lands, and maybe that's the private property. And you have to maybe buy those lands, or you get permissions, right? Or you rent those land. Okay, so you have to first get rights of the way, right, before you can install those pipelines, right? And then once you get the rights of way, then you have to start install those pipelines. Maybe you will have some construction projects to go, right, and install pipelines. Okay. However, once you have this system, the variable cost is relatively low, right? So you don't need to have drivers, you don't need to have cars, you don't need to use fuels, right? So the variable cost is relatively low, except you still need to have some maintenance cost. You still need to spend some maintenance expenses. And the reliability is also good. Right? However, the disadvantages is only some limited categories of items can be transported from using this transport mode, right? And typically should have some liquid form, right? Liquid form, like you can use pipeline to transport like oil or some liquid products, right? So that's a pipeline transport. That's a very special kind of transport mode. And the following 2 figures show the distribution of different transport modes used in Europe, okay, in terms of weight, and next slide in terms of value, okay. The EU 27, the 27 countries, the statistics in 2010, okay. We can see from this figure there are sea, road, rail, inland waterway, pipeline, air, and others, okay. The most frequently used in terms of, in terms of weight is sea transport, right? Accounts for a bit over 50% in terms of weight of the overall weight, transport weight in 2010 in Europe. Okay. The second one is the air. Air is perhaps 23-24%, right? And the third one is the road. Okay. And these figures include the international trade and also domestic trade. So that's why we can see a lot of cargoes using this transport mode, okay? Sea transport mode. Okay, this sea and inland waterway together are the transport mode that we just mentioned, water transport mode. Okay. And next one is very similar, in terms of distributions. But here, we compared the usage in terms of the value, the freight value carried in the entire year. Okay. Again, the sea transport accounts for more than 50%. Again, it is the number 1 in the first place. Okay. And air, again, the second one, and the road in the third place. So that's the figures that we can get, statistic figures we can get from this website, the European Commission Transport Statistical Pocketbook 2012. In the previous 2 figures, we know the sea transport is very important, right, in terms of the freight value or freight weight, right? So the maritime is regarding the sea transport, maybe the inland river and the river transport. The maritime transport is the major mode of transport, right? From the previous figure, it's also the major transport mode for the international trade. Right? For the international trade, of course, you can use other transport modes. Right? You can use like air modes. Right? But in Europe, you can also use water transport mode for the international trade. Okay. But still, in the entire world, maritime transport mode is the number one. I mean, in terms of the quantity, the value used for the international trade. Okay. So this figure shows for the entire world, about 6 billion tons of weight of the freight moves by this transport, by the maritime transport every year. And among this particular mode, there are 45% for the liquid books, 23% for the dry books, dry cargo, and 32% for general cargo. Well, that's the distributions for the different kind of goods. Right? And also the road transport also is very important. Okay, and we can say that road transport is the major mode for the domestic inland movement. Like for example, in Taiwan, of course, the road transport is the number one transport mode used inside Taiwan. And we all know it's very flexible because it can provide direct links between consignor and consignees, can provide so-called door-to-door services, right? And in terms of speed, it is also very good and save a lot of time. However, the transport mode is not very good for the environment. It is not so environmentally friendly kind of transport mode because of those emissions of the carbon dioxide. Okay? So let's manage the environment. So when we try to plan our distribution centers, our warehouses, right, we have to consider where to locate our warehouses, our distribution centers. We try to locate distribution centers maybe in a very convenient place, and so that it is close to the market, and so that we don't need to use a lot of trucks, a lot of truck transportation. We will not damage the environment so much. That's doable. If you are the person that in charge of this kind of planning, you should have this in mind. Okay, this is the intermodal transport mode. In the last hour, I've mentioned that we can select more than one transport modes, right? And if we use more than one transport mode, then we have to make sure that when we change our flight from this mode to another mode, this task should be very smoothly. I mean, we have to figure out some way so that we can easily change from one mode to another. In practice, we can use an idea that we put our freight in a standard unit of container. Right? We call this a loading unit. If all the our freight can be in one single loading unit, right? For example, in container, a 20 feet long container, then when we first in the beginning, we use truck. We use truck to carry this container, and then the container will be carried to, say, airport or to the seaport, right? And then, for example, when a container is carried to the seaport, then we can use some handling equipment to move this container easily onto the ship, right? So it might take just very, very short time, right? You don't need to make great efforts to unload the container from the truck. and then load the container onto the ship. Right? If you use the standard unit, you can easily change different transport modes. Right? We can call this seamless transfer. That means that it takes just very few time, very short time to finish this transfer. So sometimes we might read this term ITU, okay, from the some document, some international trade document, ITU. Okay, so the ITU flight, okay, the flight in the ITU all the way will remain within this same unit from the origin to the destination. Okay, so typically we can have the two types of containers as our ITUs in terms of the length. One is 20 feet long, the other is 40 feet long. Okay, these two are very typical types, typical sizes. Air flight, we use a different kind of container, right? And it's not like a rectangle one. It's very special type. We call this air flight, the container for the air flight, the igloo. And this also in ITU, but this is a different kind of container. Okay, now we move on to this topic, transport infrastructure for a nation, for a country. Usually, of course, these are the responsibilities of the policy makers, right? Of course, this is also a very complex, and the long-term task. Okay, and many people or firms will be influenced by this policy decision. Okay? So it should be very careful, right, for those policy makers to plan infrastructure for the transportation. Okay? In general, okay, we know the transport is a derived demand. Okay, so people of flight, okay, they travel on a certain transportation vessels or tools, right? But they have their particular reasons, right? For example, people use the transport service, move from one city to another, maybe for going on a business trip, like some people need to visit their customers in different countries or different cities, right? Or people might use this transport service for going on holidays, right? They take some days off and then go to some countries or some other cities or countryside areas to spend several days there. And for the flight, okay, flight travel from one place to another. The reason maybe they are moving from the factory to the market, right? So that they can be sold in the market. Or these flights are moved to another factories for further processing, so that eventually they become finished goods, right? So typically the transport is a derived demand. No matter people or flight, they using these services for very particular reasons. They just don't travel for the sake of making a journey. When we try to plan the infrastructure, of course, we hope that we don't over-invest and also we don't under-invest. We like to build the systems, the highway systems or other transportation systems, so that the systems can satisfy the transportation needs for at least the future 10 years or 15 years, right? And also we need to very careful that we should make sure that this infrastructure is expandable. It's expandable. Maybe 5 years or 10 years later, we see the traffic growth that we need to expand. We need to have more highways, or we need to have the certain highways to be widened, say originally maybe 4 lanes, and then we need to additional 2 lanes. Then in the beginning, we have to keep this kind of expandability so that in the future we can easily expand our capacity. Okay. So the expandable capacity is important. Integration is important. For the transportation infrastructure, for example, in Taipei, we have MRT system, we have bus, public transportation system, we have a railway system, we have high-speed railway, right? And you can see these different kind of transportation systems are well integrated in Taipei. But in other cities, I don't think so, especially in the city, in Taichung. Previous time I spent there for 14 years. I don't think that's a very good integration in Taichung. You have been there? Yeah, it's very inconvenient, especially for the bus, the public transportation system. It's not so convenient compared to Taipei here. And you better have a car or a motorcycle. Otherwise, it's very inconvenient in other cities in Taiwan. So integration is important. If you have the opportunity to visit Tokyo, you will see their transportation system also are highly integrated, very convenient, especially their MRT system, their subways MRT system. And also the enhanced quality, the accessibility, and the environmental friendliness. All these factors should be considered when we try to plan the transportation infrastructure for the future 15 years or future 20 years. Okay, so that's not easy for the policy makers. Right? Of course, as a citizen, we can also make suggestions to those lawmakers or those policy makers. If we have some good idea, maybe we can also using different ways to tell them the idea, so that they can the opinions from different people, from different organizations, or different angles, or from maybe environmental protection parties, etc. Now, the distribution centers, in short, DC, we're going to introduce this new. It's not really new organization, new type of warehouses. It's emerged in maybe 1970s. And also here, I will try to explain the factory gate pricing, in short, FGP practice. And that's also an important and popular practice nowadays implemented by the retailers. Okay, distribution center, DC, in short, is basically a warehouse, okay? And this warehouse, actually, this kind of warehouse was introduced in about 1970s in the retail sector. Okay. Usually, okay, the manufacturers, they complete their production process. They send their products to some distributions. Of course, in the beginning, maybe those items are put in their warehouses, right? And then later on, the retailers maybe have orders on the distribution centers, and the distribution centers aggregate all the orders from different retailers, and then they place orders on the to their manufacturers, upstream manufacturers, right? And the manufacturers or suppliers typically send those product items ordered in full truck loads. That means a full truckloads. A truck was used, the capacity was used up, and you put all the items onto these full truckloads. Right? Okay, that's the practical requirement, practice. Okay, in full truckloads, it's a requirement by the distribution centers. However, sometimes maybe the manufacturers or suppliers cannot use up the truck capacity. So their freight will be not in the full truckloads, right? Less than the full truckloads, right? So because of this situation is quite often in 1990s, okay, another type of warehouses was introduced. We call this consolidation centers. Okay? So consolidation center accept less than full truckloads goods, okay, from the suppliers or from the manufacturers. Maybe we can look at these figures first, and then we go back to our slide. This is a distribution centers. It services different retail stores nearby, right? It ordered items from suppliers, right? These are bulk lines, right? That means these lines should send products in full truckloads. Otherwise, DC will not accept their delivery. So if this supplier does not have a full truckload, it has only maybe part of the full truckload, then it needs to first send these items to the consolidation center. And also this supplier also sometimes send their goods to the consolidation center. So this consolidation center, CC, can consolidate items, products from different suppliers, combine them into a full truckloads so that it can send this full truckload freight to distribution centers. That's the idea. So this type of warehouses, right, order the items from the upstream suppliers and also do some light processing, some light assembly, simple assembly for the retailers. So this is the functions that we have mentioned in the previous chapter. We say typically a warehouse has 4 functions, right? So in that chapter, actually, that warehouse is equal to the distribution centers. But traditionally, actually, warehouse doesn't do any processing, doesn't do any packaging, etc. Okay. So for the modern warehouses, it has the additional functions, and we give this newer warehouses a new name, distribution centers. Basically, they are also warehouses. Okay. Actually, the consolidation centers are also warehouses, right? We just give them different names because of they have newer functions. So let's go back to this slide. So for the national level, we may have a distribution center, right? But in different regions, right? In different regions, like in the United States, maybe in the east coast, west coast, or in the middle part or the southern part, maybe they have different regional distribution centers. So we call this RDCs, right? Regional distribution centers. And for the regional distribution centers, maybe they send cargoes to, maybe they don't send to directly to retailers. Maybe they send to the next level distribution centers, etc. That's the regional distribution centers. So to have the delivery or transportation arrangement more reliable and more flexible, nowadays those retailers, especially for those 10 stores, okay, they take over the arrangement of the delivery from the suppliers, right? Previous time, suppliers or manufacturers, if your price, this price will include the buying cost, also the delivery cost, the transportation cost, right? And then the suppliers arrange the delivery for you, and then it has to in charge of everything, the arrangement, everything. But gradually, these retailers or chain stores, they feel that they want to do this arrangement on their own, so that they can guarantee that they have lower cost, they have shorter lead times, they can be very flexible, right? So they just use this so-called factory gate pricing practice. They implement this practice. They pay the cost, just the buying cost. So we call this X works pricing. That means cargo leaving this factory, then the responsibility becomes transferred to the buyers, right? To the buyers. So the buyers need to take care of everything, including the delivery arrangement, etc. Okay. So of course now you save cost, right? You can save money, because previous time you have to pay the price, including the arrangement of the transportation. Right? But now you don't need to pay that part. However, you have to still need to spend those money, but you can have a overall control, the complete control on this arrangement. That's the idea of the FGP, right? FGP. So the FGP guarantee a single point of control for the inbound logistics networks for the retailers. So nowadays we can see that in Taiwan, the 7-Eleven chain store, they have invest in several distribution centers. If I remember correctly, one distribution center is in Taoyuan, Nankan. Okay, it's maybe just less than say 80 or 70 kilometers from Taipei. One is there. The other one is in Taichung. That's about 200 kilometers from here, from Taipei. Yeah, I remember correctly. They have these two distribution centers for their goods. Okay. That's the distribution centers. Now let's move to the last part of this unit. Now we try to introduce a mathematic model, a transportation model. Okay, if you have already taken courses like operations research or managerial science models, something like that, then you should be familiar with this model. Otherwise, maybe you will feel this is a very new technique. Let me first briefly tell you the notations that we are going to use. Okay. For mathematical models, of course, we need to have some notations, right? Some notations to represent some parameters or some decision variables. Okay. In this transportation model, okay, the model basically, the idea is try to minimize total transport cost. Okay. That's our objective. Minimize total transport cost for the number of units of a single commodity. We assume only one single commodity will be transported from origins to destinations. Transported from given suppliers, that's the origins, to destinations, maybe some distribution centers or retailers. Okay. We try to minimize the cost, while at the same time we hope that every supplier just at most supply their units up to their capacity. And also, we don't want to see any destination is over, we send quantities more than they need. Okay, we don't like to see that. And the notation here, the S sub I means the number of products available at origin I. That's their capacity. So S sub I is the capacity for the I supplier or I origin. The D sub J means the demand at the destination J, demand, and then needed items, needed quantities. Okay. C sub IJ means the unit transport cost between I and J, okay, between, say, city I and city J, the unit transport cost. You send 1 unit of product that you have to pay this amount of money. Okay. So what about XIJ? What does this mean? XIJ is the only variable for this model. Okay. The XIJ means the number of units transported from I to J. Of course, this will be determined. Once we solve this model, we know the exact number, exact quantity, exact value of XIJ. Okay? And the previous three, the SI, DJ, and CIJ are so-called parameters, are so-called inputs. You should have inputs for the to the model, right? You need to have these parameters, right? And you have to get output. The output is what? Output is the variable XIJ. That's the output. You put all these parameters into the model and you get the output XIJ. You know the answer. The answer will guarantee to minimize the cost, minimize the total cost. Okay. Let's look at the model itself. Okay, this is the transportation model. We have 2 parts for a typical mathematical model, okay, especially this kind of mathematical model. The first part is the objective function, so-called objective function. Okay. Typically, we minimize or maximize, depends on the nature of the problem. Okay. For this transportation problem, we try to minimize the objective function, minimize the total cost. Okay. So the total cost can be expressed in this way. Okay. So CIJ, the unit cost, times the units, okay, transported from I to J, right? CIJ times XIJ. Then you have totally N suppliers, right? Then you use this symbol. This is a summation symbol, right? Then it tells us the subscript I is from I1 to N. We have N centers, N suppliers. And the second summation symbol tells us the J is from 1 to N. So we have N retailers or N destinations, right? We sent items from I to J. So this is totally, we have this cost function with sum of this individual item up, sum of these items. Okay. And the next part, the second part, we call this constraints. We call it constraints. We have the objective function. We have the constraints, right? We try to solve this problem. We try to find the values for Xij so that this can be minimized and also guarantee that these conditions are satisfied. So we call these are constraints. So for a typical transportation model, we have 2 types of constraints. The first type constraint is the capacity constraints. Okay. See, for each supplier, from supplier 1 to supplier n, for each supplier, we don't like to see the quantity sent out from this supplier to all the n destinations. Right? The sum of these quantities cannot exceed the capacity, at most equal to that amount. So you can see the less than symbol here, right? From the same place to different j, okay, j from 1 to n, we sum all these quantities sent out from I to different j. Totally, these quantities cannot exceed the availability in the supply high, right? So that's very reasonable, makes sense, right? So although we express this constraint type, this type of constraint this way, that doesn't mean that we only have one constraint, okay? Actually, we have n constraints, right? And we express this way, then we can save space, right? Just use this, and we have an explanation here. Say I actually is from 1 to n. That means actually we have n constraints here. And the second group is the demand constraints, right? We don't like to see all the items sent from different origins, different suppliers, from I to M, all the way to J. We don't like to see this total amount exceeds the demand at this retailer J, right? That also makes sense, right? So these two are constraints. We don't want to find the values Xij that violate these constraints, right? Although you can find some positive numbers, Xij positive values that can have lower cost for this C. However, maybe those values just violate this constraint, so that's not feasible, infeasible. We like to see we get solutions that these Xij don't violate these constraints and also can give us a lowest cost. That's the purpose. How to solve this problem? Of course, behind the procedure, there's some solution technique. However, we don't tell you this solution technique in details here. Right? But basically, we can easily get a software, okay, not very expensive one, okay, and we can simply just apply that software to solve the problem. We just give the software inputs. Those are CIJ and SI and DJ, these inputs. And also we tell them tell the software that we want to minimize or maximize. We tell them this choice. And we also tell them how many destinations we have, how many suppliers we have. That's all. And then you press one item, one button, then the software can give you the answer in maybe less than 1 second. Otherwise, you want to solve this problem by hand, maybe it will take you maybe 10 or 20 minutes for a very simple problem, easy problem, right? But for a very complicated problem, you try to solve the problem by hand, and maybe it take you several days, and you still don't get the answer. Okay. Let's look at this easy example. Okay, this company ship its automobile from 3 factories located in Miaoli, Taichung, and Tainan to 2 distribution centers in Taipei and Kaohsiung. Okay, now these 3 factories can supply every month 300, 200, and 150 automobiles. Okay, and the demand at the 2 distribution centers, Taipei and Kaohsiung, okay, are 400 and 250 automobiles for the month, for the entire month. Okay, now first let's look at the total supply. Add up these 3 numbers. It equals 650, right? And the total demand also, again, we sum up 400, 250. It's also 650. Okay, but this is not the necessary requirement. Basically, you can have total demand, okay, less than or greater than total supply. That doesn't matter. Okay? Now, this is just a special case, actually. Okay, but basically, we allowed the so-called imbalanced situation. Okay? Higher demand or higher supply. It's okay. You can still solve the problem. Okay, let's look at this problem. And we have the inputs, the parameters, the inputs. Okay, here. Okay, so you have through some investigation, some survey or data collection, you have the idea that unit cost CIJ from the 3 suppliers to the two distribution centers. Right? You have this cost. Right? For example, from Miaoli to Taipei, the unit transport cost 25. Right? From Tainan to Kaohsiung, the unit transport cost 30. Maybe in terms of $120. Okay, that's the CIJ part. Okay, and we already have the SI, right? These 3 are SI, S1, the capacity, right? S1, S2, and S3. And also we have D1 and D2, right? DJ, right? Destination, demand at the destinations. We have all these parameters available. Then we just use some kind of software. And if you want to show people the entire model, then you can use this slide. Okay, so this is the cost function, right? Rather than use the summation symbol, that we use directly, we use the parameters, right? See, this is the 25 unit cost, right? And this Xij X11 means from, say, Miaoli to Taipei, X11. The automobiles will be transported from Miaoli to Taipei. Okay, the unit cost is 25, but actually, how many? We don't know, right? These are outputs. When we solve the problem, we'll get these numbers, right? X11, X12. Right? X31 means transported from Tainan to Taipei, right? And 32 means transported from Tainan to Kaohsiung, etc. Okay, and the constraints. The 3 equations here represent the capacities, right? The capacity constraints, capacity of the 3 suppliers as supply locations. Right? For example, the Miaoli, it can only supply at most 300 automobiles, right? It can supply Taipei X11. It can supply also Kaohsiung, right? Together, this quantity cannot exceed 300, right? We would like to see that they are equal to 300. So instead of use a less than and equal, we can directly use a equal. However, if you want to use a less than and equal, that's also fine. Okay. Okay. Same thing for the supply location in Taichung, in Tainan. Okay. Both of them, just like the location in Miaoli, can supply the 2 destinations. Right? We have 3 capacity constraints here. And also for the demand constraints, right? For example, the Taipei, the Taipei we need 400. Right? It can be supplied from Miaoli, Taichung, and Kaohsiung, right? Together, we don't have to see this sum exceeds 400. And also, the demand at Kaohsiung, 250, can be supplied by Miaoli, by Taichung and Tainan locations, right? So together they cannot exceed 250. That's all. This is very simple example, right? And I think you use a software, and it can give you the answer, maybe in just a very, very short time, maybe less than one second, something like that. Right? And that's the answer. That's the solution. The solution are in these 6 cells, right? Here and here, empty cells. Actually, you can put 0 here. That's the output from the software, right? And the total cost, you just plug in the numbers, right? 300 sent from Miaoli to Taipei times the unit cost, etc. Right? So the total cost is 15,500, right? This is the minimized cost, minimal cost. Okay. Look at these numbers here. Say from Miaoli to Taipei, Miaoli supply Taipei supply Kaohsiung totally 300. Does not exceed, right? Its capacity. And also Taichung supply Kaohsiung, Taipei 100 units and supply Kaohsiung 100 units. Together, the sum is 200. Also does not exceed its capacity, right? And also Tainan 0, supply 0 to Taipei, supply 150 to Kaohsiung. So together, its capacity is also not exceeded, right? 150. And again, we look at the column, right? Together, Taipei meet 400 automobiles supplied by Miaoli 300, Taichung 100, and also the Kaohsiung totally it needs 250 automobiles, 100 from Taichung, Tainan, okay, supply another 150 units, right? So together, 250 can totally satisfy the demand, the needs at Kaohsiung. Okay, that's the solution. Okay, so any question regarding this transportation model? I think it's very easy, right? The thing is, the difficult part is we need to formulate the problem into a transportation model. This is a critical part. Once you can formulate your problem into a model like this, then you just use a very handy software, convenient software, and right away you can get your answer. You can analyze. Of course, once you have the answer, you can again do some additional analysis, some so-called sensitivity analysis. For example, maybe you're not so sure this parameters, $25 is exactly 25 or a little bit higher or a little bit lower than 25. You can set a range, say from 23 to 26 to see whether or not the solutions will be changed or not, right? So you can do the further analysis like this. Okay, I think that's all for this unit.